What images conjure up when you think about the world's richest countries and when you ponder the world's smallest nations? Intriguingly, many of the wealthiest countries are also strikingly small. Countries like San Marino, Luxembourg, Switzerland and Singapore have done wonders with their potent financial sectors, enticing tax regimes and abundant natural resources. Nations like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates have hit the jackpot with extensive hydrocarbon reserves. Others transformed into tourist magnets and entertainment paradises, raking in wealth through glitzy casinos and attractions. But when we tag a country as rich, what's the real? Is a robust GDP synonymous with individual wealth? Or does the narrative entail more elements? But what do we really mean when we say a country is rich? Let's delve a little deeper into this. When we talk about a country's wealth, we often refer to its gross domestic product or GDP. Indeed, GDP is a significant economic indicator. But does it paint the complete picture of a nation's wealth? Not necessarily. When calculating GDP, we consider the total monetary value of all goods and services produced within that nation's borders during a specific time frame. This gives us a bird's-eye view of a country's economic activity. Yet it doesn't accurately reflect the wealth of individuals within the nation. To overcome this limitation, economists introduced a concept known as GDP per capita. This is attained by dividing the GDP by the total population of the country. GDP per capita can provide us with a more precise estimate of the average economic output per person. Unsurprisingly, this is why many of the world's smallest nations are some of the wealthiest. Take Luxembourg and Singapore, for example. Despite their diminutive size, these nations have thriving economies and a relatively small number of inhabitants, which contributes to their sky-high GDP per capita. However, this metric is not without its flaws. GDP capita doesn't consider the cost of living within a country, which can significantly impact the quality of life. Enter the concept of purchasing power. Parity, or PPP. PPP is a refined measure of wealth that takes into account the relative cost of living and the inflation rates of the country. It determines the buying power of an average citizen within their home country. In essence, PPP provides us with a more comprehensive view of the average standard of living in a country. For instance, consider the humble dollar. In the United States, a dollar might just get you a cup of coffee. But in another country, that same dollar could potentially buy you a complete meal. Such disparities in purchasing power allow us to establish a more accurate comparison of wealth between nations. Yet, it's important to remember that even with a high PPP, not all citizens are equally wealthy. Why? Wealth distribution within a country might be highly unequal due to structural disparities. This could lead to wealth being concentrated among a small slice of the population, leaving the majority less affluent. So, when discussing wealth, it's essential to delve deeper than the numbers and the broader socioeconomic context. But does a high PPP mean that everyone in the country is better off? Not necessarily. Let's look at why. Even within a country with a high PPP, wealth distribution might not be equal. Structural inequalities can mean that the wealth is concentrated among a small percentage of the population, leaving the majority less well off. This is why, when talking about wealth, it's crucial to look beyond just the numbers and understand the broader picture. Averages can be deceptive. A high purchasing power parity, or PPP, is not a concrete indication of universal high living standards in a country. Wealth may not always be evenly shared within a nation, giving rise to the concept of wealth disparity. This term refers to the uneven spread of assets among a population. The richest nations, despite their notable GDPs and high PPPs, often face such disparities. Structural inequalities can result in a significant gap between the rich and the less fortunate, distorting the equilibrium of wealth. For example, consider a country with small population where a few individuals possess most of the wealth. The country's high average wealth might suggest widespread affluence, but the reality could be vastly different. A small minority could be reaping the majority of wealth, while the rest merely survive. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated these disparities. The wealthiest countries managed to support their citizens, but not everyone had equal access to these benefits. The economic impact of lockdowns hit low-income workers harder, sparking a new type of inequality. Those in high-paying jobs had the luxury of working from home, while others risked their health by commuting or lost their jobs. The pandemic exposed gaping flaws in some of the world's most praised welfare systems. Industries closed, leaving many unprotected, exacerbating the wealth divide. Therefore, even though some of the smallest nations are the wealthiest, it's key to remember that wealth is not always equally spread. The narrative of wealth is intricate and often contradictory, with numerous factors contributing. It's a story of prosperity, disparity, and inequality. Without further, let's dive into the countdown, starting with number 10. Securing the 10th position, we have the United States, with a GDP per capita of $80,412 USD. The US is an exception to the general trend of smaller states being wealthier. The US broke into the top 10 in 2020, after spending nearly 2 decades on the cusp. Factors contributing to this include falling energy prices and increased state spending linked to the pandemic. The drop in energy prices negatively affected petroleum-based economies such as Qatar, Norway, and the UAE, causing them to lose their previous rankings. Brunei was even bumped down from the top 10. Concurrently, a surge in American government spending on social welfare escalated aggregate demand. Consequently, the recession in early 2020 was the shortest on record, lasting only 2 months. Despite the pandemic, the job market has seen a revival, albeit inflation has often diminished workers' pay. After the US, we move to Norway with a GDP per capita of 82,236 USD. Norway's economy thrived after the discovery of offshore oil reserves in the late 60s. Being the top petroleum producer in Western Europe, Norway rode the wave of steadily rising prices for decades. However, a sudden shift occurred in 2020. Oil prices collapsed, and then a global pandemic hit. The impact was dramatic. The krone plummeted, and in the second quarter, Norway's GDP fell by 6.3%, marking the most significant decline in half a century, possibly even since World War II. This does not, however, indicate that Norwegians became substantially less affluent. The economy recovered after the initial shock, gradually offsetting the losses. Furthermore, Norway has a $1.3 trillion sovereign wealth fund to fall back upon during economic crises. This fund is the largest in the world. In addition, unlike many wealthy nations, Norway's high per capita GDP accurately mirrors the average citizen's economic well-being, with the country possessing one of the smallest income inequality gaps globally. Number 8 on our list is San Marino. This tiny European republic, one of the smallest worldwide, boasts a GDP per capita of 84,135 USD. Of its 34,000 citizens, many enjoy wealth and prosperity thanks to low income tax rates, around 1/3 of the EU average. This, coupled with the robustness of its economy, makes it one of the wealthiest countries globally. Despite its size, San Marino remains committed to adjusting its fiscal laws to align with EU and international norms. The nation displayed remarkable resilience during the pandemic, with the tourism and manufacturing sectors showing particularly strong performances amid monetary and energy crises. The tiny nation showed remarkable resilience during the pandemic and after, amid tight monetary conditions and the energy crisis, with its tourism industry and manufacturing sector turning especially strong performances. Coming in at number 7, United Arab Emirates. The country's GDP per capita is an impressive 88,962 USD. Long ago, it was agriculture, fishing, and pearl trading that sustained the economy of this Gulf nation. However, everything transformed in the 1950s with the discovery of oil. Today, the UAE thrives with cosmopolitanism, an array of cultures brought together by wealth. The modernized Islamic architecture stands side by side with ostentatious shopping centers, attracting a workforce from all around the globe. These workers are drawn to the tax-free salaries and the promise of everlasting sunshine. Interestingly, only about 20% of the current residents are native to the land. Economic diversification is a key aspect of the UAE, focusing beyond the once dominant hydrocarbon sector. Tourism, construction, trade and finance play significant roles in the country's prosperity. Yet, the pandemic and subsequent oil price plunge had a severe impact, pulling the UAE temporarily out of the IMF's ranking of the richest countries for the first time in decades. But the fossil fuel industry remains vital. As energy prices stabilized, the UAE bounced back, reclaiming its place among the top 10 richest countries globally. Incredible as it may seem, the UAE briefly slipped out of the IMF's ranking of the richest countries globally for the first time in decades. Yet fossil fuels have not gone out of fashion. As soon as energy prices recovered, the UAE quickly regained its historic position among the top 10 richest countries in the world. At number 6, we have Switzerland, a country that undoubtedly holds a wealth of wonder, known for its affluence and notable creations, such as the Swiss Army knife, the computer mouse, and white chocolate. The Swiss GDP per capita is 89,537 USD. Additionally, Switzerland boasts key inventions like the immersion blender, Velcro, and LSD. With a population of roughly 8.8 million people, their prosperity comes from banking, insurance, tourism, and notable exports. These include pharmaceuticals, precious metals, precision instruments like watches, as well as machinery such as medical apparatuses and computers. The 2023 Wealth Report by Credit Suisse hails Switzerland as the top wealth holder per adult, with an average of $685,230. Consequently, 1 in every 6 adults in the country owns assets exceeding $1 million, making it the country with the highest density of millionaires. But prosperity doesn't mean the absence of economic worries. The global pandemic's impact on the economy was felt deeply. The war in Ukraine also led to concerns due to Switzerland's dependence on Russian oil and gas imports, causing a surge in energy prices and supply chain disruptions. Also, the banking sector took a hit in 2022 when Credit Suisse nearly collapsed, but was saved by a government-engineered rescue by UBS Group. The demise of Credit Suisse has shaken the country, damaging Switzerland's reputation as a secure and reliable global banking centre. We have an episode regarding why Switzerland is rich. Link is on right top corner. Watch it for more details. Moving to number 5, we have Macao SAR GDP per capita is 98,157 USD. Just a few years back, it was foreseen that this Asian Las Vegas would be the world's richest nation. Emerging from the Portuguese Empire, the gaming industry was democratized in 2001, and Macau, under China's special administrative region, experienced rapid wealth expansion. With roughly 700,000 inhabitants, it houses over 40 casinos within a 30-square-kilometre territory. Situated just south of Hong Kong, this slim peninsula became a lucrative venture, but the tables turned. The COVID pandemic halted global travel, and for a moment, Macau dropped from the top 10 richest nations. Now it's gradually resuming normalcy. Yet the per capita purchasing power is still significantly less than pre-pandemic. It was approximately $125,000 in 2019, dropping by over $25,000 currently. Number 4 is Qatar. GDP per capita is 114,210 USD. Despite facing economic challenges, the country remains a global economic powerhouse. Much of its wealth is attributed to its vast oil, gas, and petrochemical reserves. Since the mid-2010s, oil prices have experienced a gradual decline. This affected Qatar's GDP, which saw a significant plunge in 2015, dipping below the $100,000 mark. However, the nation's wealth per capita has seen a steady rise, increasing annually by roughly $10,000. With a population of just 2.7 million, Qatar's enormous energy reserves have kept it among the world's wealthiest countries for 2 decades. But wealth doesn't equal problem-free. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the country's vulnerabilities, with the virus spreading swiftly among its substantial low-income migrant populations. A drop in energy prices led to decreased government and private sector revenues. Furthermore, as an export-oriented economy, the war in Ukraine disrupted Qatar's global trade. However, Qatar's economy has shown impressive resilience. It is projected to grow by 2.1% in 2024 and by 3.7% next year. At number 3, we have Singapore, a tiny lion nation in Asia. With a GDP per capita of 133,110 USD, it's a significant player on the global economic stage. The wealthiest individual in Singapore is the founder of Mindray, a medical equipment firm, Lee Zhiting. His net worth is a staggering $15.6 billion. Not too far behind are the Eng brothers, Robert and Philip, who've amassed their wealth in the property development sector. Goh Cheng Liang, the man behind Wuthelam Holdings, a company specializing in paint and coatings production, follows in third place. In fourth place, we have Eduardo Saverin, a name many of you might recognize as the co-founder of Facebook. In 2011, Saverin left the US with 53 million shares of Facebook, settling down in Singapore. This wasn't a random choice. Singapore is an affluent fiscal haven. Capital gains and dividends are tax-free, making it an attractive destination for high-net-worth individuals. But how did Singapore to attract so many wealthy people? When it became independent in 1965, it was a struggling city-state with half its population illiterate. However, through sheer grit, hard work and smart policy-making, Singapore transformed itself into one of the world's most business-friendly places. It managed to pull itself up by its bootstraps, becoming a thriving hub for trade, manufacturing and finance. Today, Singapore boasts a 98% adult literacy rate, but even this remarkable progress couldn't shield it from the effects of the global pandemic. In 2020, its economy took a 3.9% hit, pushing the nation into its first recession in over a decade. Things seemed to look up in 2021 when the economy rebounded with an 8.8% growth. However, the economic slowdown in China, a key trading partner, put a dent in this recovery. This had a particularly severe impact on Singapore's manufacturing sector, which contributes 21.6% of its total GDP. As a result, the economy only expanded by 1% in 2023, and growth predictions for 2024 and 2025 remain modest at just over 2%. The economy expanded by just 1% in 2023 and is not projected to grow much further than 2% in 2024 and 2025. Moving into number 2. Number 2, we have Ireland. The GDP per capita is a staggering 137,640 USD. Housing mere 5 million people, this island nation had its fair share of economic hardships. After the 2008 crisis, it adopted strict reforms, cutting public sector wages and revamping its banking industry. These efforts propelled Ireland to financial stability, enhancing employment rates and GDP growth. But there's a catch. Ireland is a major corporate tax haven. This reality aids multinational companies far more than its average citizen. In the mid-2010s, global giants such as Apple and Google shifted their fiscal homes to Ireland, lured by its 12.5% corporate tax, a standout rate in the developed world. In 2022, these companies made up over 60% of the total value added to the Irish economy, as per the Social Statistics Office. If this nation were to adhere to the OECD proposed minimum corporate tax rate of 15%, it would lose this edge. Despite improvements, Irish families' disposable income is still a bit lower than the EU average, as per OECD data. And with a major income disparity, the top 20% earns nearly 5 times as the bottom fifth. Most Irish would contest the claim that they are the world's wealthiest. Further, while Irish families are undoubtedly better off than they used to be, the national household per capita disposable income remains slightly lower than the overall EU average, according to data from the OECD. With a considerable gap between the richest and poorest, the top 20% of the population earns almost 5 times as much as the bottom 20%. Most Irish citizens would likely balk at the idea that they are not just rich, but the richest in the world. Topping our list at number 1, we have Luxembourg, the world's wealthiest nation. With a GDP per capita of 143,320 USD, its wealth evident. Besides being financially prosperous, Luxembourg also boasts a rich cultural heritage. You can explore its ancient castles, beautiful countryside, or partake in their cultural festivities and gastronomic delights. However, its appeal isn't limited to tourism. Its robust financial system allows for offshore banking, increasing its allure. Yet, never setting foot here would be a shame. Nestled in the heart of Europe, this nation of around 650,000 residents has a lot to contribute to both its citizens and tourists. Luxembourg uses a significant portion of its wealth for the welfare of its people. With the highest standard of living in the Eurozone, its citizens enjoy excellent housing, healthcare and education facilities. Despite minor hiccups due to global economic volatility and the COVID-19 pandemic, Luxembourg's economy demonstrated resilience. While many businesses were forced to shut down and workers lost jobs during the outbreak, the nation rebounded brilliantly. Its economy bounced back from minus 0.9% growth in 2020 to a staggering 7% in 2021. However, due to external factors such as high interest rates, the Ukraine conflict, and deteriorating economic conditions in the Eurozone, the economy saw a slight dip recently. It grew by just 1.3% in 2022 and even contracted by 0.4% last year. Despite these challenges, Luxembourg continues to top our list due to its wealth and resilience. Thank you for accompanying us on this journey of global prosperity. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.